I'd just like to kind of add to what everybody's been saying about Karoniaktajeh. He was a very special person, not just to us, but to thousands of Ungwahungwe, thousands of people who are not Ungwahungwe. He was an inspiration to a lot of people. But one thing I always respected about the man is that he never put himself above everybody else. As much knowledge as he had, and he could have easily promoted himself and so on, and he didn't do that. He promoted people. He promoted learning. He promoted being strong and to believe in who you are. I want to tell you a little story about just how human the man is. Every so often, we have a gathering in the Longhouse. We have what we call social dancing. And that's when everybody would come, grandmothers and grandfathers, aunts, uncles, parents, and all the children to the smallest grandchildren. We'd all come together and we'd sing our songs and we would dance together.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as generation gaps at these gatherings. Grandmother would be dancing, rather dance with the grandson. Grandfather would be doing that with the granddaughter. Everybody danced together. We were all one and the same. This one particular time, Karoniaktajeh, he showed up a little bit early and he was sitting in the longhouse by himself. And there was some young kids playing outside. But one of our grandmothers, she showed up and she went inside. And he was sitting there against the wall by himself. So she went and sit next to him. And then all of a sudden she started sniffing. And she looked at him and said, "Louis." He said, "What?" He says, "Did you fart?" And he says, "Of course I did. You think I smell like this all the time?" But that's the kind of guy he was. You could always get a good laugh with him and that. And he wasn't shy, but he was truthful. And it was a good part of him. That he could say, "Hey, yeah, I'm human. I'm not going to pretend," and so on. And that was always a story that I would always remember about him, is how down to earth the man was. And but his teachings go on. And I encourage you all to read that book. And you're going to get to know a bit about him. You're going to get to know a bit about us and about the things that we have had to go through. But I want to let you know, this book is very important to us, because there's none of us here that's going to profit from that book. All the proceeds of this book is going to go to the Louis Hall Foundation, which is going to make those monies available to a school that Louis and many of us were involved in starting. People call it the Indian Way School. Yeah. And it's a school that is not controlled by band councils, it's not controlled by governments, it's our school. We decide what the education of our children will be. And we know that not long from now, and that things are going to change in our communities. And a lot of funds and that we rely on for our education for our children, that's going to be cut off. And that because of what's called the framework agreement. That elective councils have signed on to agreements with the provinces, and that to come under the jurisdiction of the provinces, and that they will turn our communities into municipalities and start to tax our people. And many of our people are going to lose their homes. Many of our people barely make enough money to keep the lights on and food on the table, and they're not be able to pay taxes. And right now, what the governments do is they give us a piece of paper. It's called a certificate of possession. It's our land, and they certify that we can possess this land, and but we can't own this land. So now they're going to take away that certificate of possession, and they're going to give us titles to the land. Now what happens is that many of the people are having hard times they need money to try to invest in something. But many of our people don't know how to manage money. They don't really know how, that way of life. They're not that familiar with it, especially because of the education that our people received. We are not taught how to use money. And so many of the people are now can go to the banks with this paper and that because now they have title. Now they can collateralize the land. And one thing my grandfather always said, it's easy to borrow money, but it's hard to pay it back. And so many of our communities, because we do not really have any real economy other than a service economy like cigarettes or casinos or stuff like that. But when the new laws come in, that's all going to change. And most of the businesses will be shut down. And so how are the people going to pay for this? And they're going to lose their lands. And because this has happened already. Down in the southwestern part of the United States, there was a thing called the Dawes Act. And that's what was used to dispossess our people of their lands. So many Lakotas, Menominees, Winnebagos, many different Wahua lost all their lands because of what was done. And it took some of them 30, 40 years to finally be again recognized that they're native. But they're not really recognized as native. It's just that they get this so-called recognition, and all the government did was give them some money, but never returned their lands. And so these people are landless today. They're searching for a connection back to their lands, and this is not allowed because the government would say if you want to reacquire these lands, you have to buy it. So we're told we have to buy our own lands, and the thing is, where are we supposed to get the monies to buy land? We are supposed to buy back our mother. That's what they're telling us. Buy back your mother. But I just wanted to share a little bit more with you, to tell you that this is ongoing. And there's a 100-year plan that was put there for us in 1924. They determined that it will take them 100 years to assimilate us and to terminate our holdings to our lands. And that now we will become what they say, just like every other Canadian or every other American. But the thing is, we are not Canadian. We are not Americans. We are Ungwahumwa.
Yeah.
And we will always be Ungwahumwa, no matter what they do to us. When they took those children and locked them up in residential schools, they thought they could take the Ungwahumwa out of them. They can't. They cannot. Because even though many of them were trouble after they came out, the thing is many of them came home. And when I say home, I don't mean their houses. I mean they came home to us. They came to us as people. Yes, they were scarred, but they did come home. And they did struggle to learn our language again. They did struggle to learn about our culture. They did struggle to become a working part of the rest of us. And many of those people, you heard about, maybe some of you are too young, but there was a movement called the American Indian Movement. And many of these people were victims of residential schools. They were victims of all of these policies and so on. And Native people all across the Western Hemisphere came together, worked towards unifying our people, and trying to support and help one another in the best way we knew how, so that our ways would not die, that our children will be able to know who they are, that they will be able to live as who we are, and that we share this knowledge and this way of life with you. And because my grandfather always told us, he says, if the white people don't have peace, we will never have peace. And it says in our Constitution, in Kaianere'kó, it says that should anyone wish to find shelter under our symbolic tree of peace, they have only to trace the roots and they can find that shade and comfort under this tree. Because that tree is for all of us, it's for all life. No matter where we come from, We are all from the same creation. And we all have a responsibility to one another, to help one another, to care and share with one another. So I just thought I'd add that little bit, since I'm not one who has a lot of words. Thank you. He gave me some words. He wants me to explain. You're going to see the picture of a flag in that book. On that flag, you see a Nuguhunwa man with his hair hanging down and one feather standing up with a red background and with the sun. Louis Karoniaktajeh put that flag together. He explained what his purpose was to make that flag. There's several flags that he'd done, but this one in particular is very important. It shows this man, a Nuguhunwa man, with his hair hanging down naturally. You see, one of the things is, no matter where you travel throughout the Western Hemisphere, all native people have a certain hairstyle. Men, women, children. That's how you know when you see a Nuguhunwa, what family he comes from, what land he comes from, what part of our mother they grew up on. And so, he said, he didn't want to make one hairstyle for any one of our people. So this is why he left the hair in the most natural way, hanging down. That would symbolize all of the Nuguhunwa people. Then he put one feather standing up. Because all of our people, we always use feathers, mainly the eagle feather. And the reason that one feather is standing is that it's to unify all of us. Because many Nuguhunwa, some have many feathers. They have these bonnets. People like to call them war bonnets, but they're not war bonnets. That's how the people identify who they are. We as kanien'kehá, we have a much simpler one, and we have 3 feathers standing. So, no matter where you go, everybody has a way of identifying themselves. And so he put that one feather standing. He didn't want to put any feathers down, because among some of our peoples, a feather hanging down signifies defeat and surrender. But none of our people, no, everybody had a feather standing. Whether it was one feather or not, we all have this. And so that would symbolize the unification of all of our people. The red background was representing the red people, our people. The sun in the background, that represents the men. Their duties and their responsibilities to always defend our people, our territories, our way of life. That's what that flag, and that's the one that's called the unity flag. There are other flags that represents just the men. And a lot of people like to call it the warrior's flag, but it's not a warrior flag. It's That's who we are. And we call ourselves Tekarontakeh because we have, when our voice changes and we go through the rite of passage ceremony, and in that medicine bag that is made by our mothers, our aunties, our grandmothers, somebody made it for us. And after we've gone through the fast, then a symbol of the medicine, our personal medicine, is put into that bag. When we were born, our umbilical cord, our grandmothers, our aunts, somebody saved that. So once we went through a rite of passage, and we come to start to no longer take for granted our women relatives and connected us back to them. So this is why the umbilical cord is put in our medicine bag.
Yeah.
But also, a third thing was some of the soil from the earth was put in our medicine bag. That's ouvrage. That's the soil. That's our mother.
Yeah.
And that we would always carry our mother with us. No matter where we went, what we did and everything, every time we touched that bag, it would remind us of all our duties and responsibilities, and that we would do the best to our ability, always to maintain peace and harmony among all peoples. That's the things. This is why these flags and these symbols are very important. It's not something from long ago and should only have been done long ago. It's something that needs to be carried on today.
Yeah.
And that, because when people do not teach their sons how important their mothers are, how important their women relatives are, how important their daughters are or their granddaughters, society falls apart. Abuse and sadness is what is created. So we need to help one another to get back these values, because it was not the intent of creation that we try to destroy one another, but to live in harmony. It's like the old people always said, people are like flowers. They're the flowers of the world. And as beautiful as red roses would be, if we turn all the flowers in the world to red roses, and as beautiful as they are, we would quickly get very tired of them. But creation made flowers, different shapes, different colors, different sizes, different fragrances, different purposes. It's like the people of the world. There are so many different kind of people throughout the world. And they say, it's not good to try to turn all people into one. Creation purposely designed all of us for a special purpose. And that's the beauty of all the flowers of the world. When we pull all these flowers together, it makes the most beautiful bouquet, and we would never get sick of all these varieties. Well, it's the same with people. People are like flowers of the world.
Yeah.
Together, when we come together and become as one in recognizing and respecting the fact that we all have purpose, and not to try to make everybody the same. This is the beautiful bouquet creation intended for all people to be.
Yeah.
And so this is the kind of things we like to share. A lot of the things that happen makes us angry with one another. But you know the sad part about it is, it's the everyday people that are taught to discriminate. See, no person is born evil. It's taught. It's taught. And if we teach our children to love one another rather than to hate one another, the world will change. But I look today, a lot of young faces. It's easy today. They're hearing things. They're probably hearing things that wasn't told to you before. But you know something? I'm not really telling you something you don't know. I'm just reminding you
Yeah.
of what you really know. So exercise it. Exercise it.
Yeah.
Okay. He said, I did okay.